There's a reason this title isn't just about being lucky. It says 25 reasons being a Sagittarius is truly a blessing in 2026. But here's what most people never understand. A blessing is never given to a weak soul. And Sagittarius, especially in 2026, is not being handed comfort. You are being handed fire. For decades, I have studied one sign more than any other. I have watched patterns repeat across generations, across continents, across personalities that look completely different on the surface, yet carry the same unmistakable spark underneath. Sagittarius is not blessed because life is easy. Sagittarius is blessed because life refuses to let them stay small. In 2026, that truth becomes louder. You may already feel it. That restless energy, that quiet dissatisfaction with normal, that inner voice that says, there has to be more than this. Most people call it impatience. I call it destiny knocking. This year is not about random good luck, it is about activation. Because when a Sagittarius begins to wake up, things start shifting, not just around them, but within them. Relationships change, goals evolve, comfort zones collapse. The version of you that once felt stable suddenly feels too narrow. And that's not chaos, that's expansion. But here's the part no one talks about. Every blessing comes with a test. The freedom you crave can turn into isolation if you don't understand it. The passion that makes you magnetic can burn bridges if it lacks wisdom. The courage that sets you apart can make others uncomfortable. And in 2026, those traits intensify. So the real question is not, is Sagittarius lucky? The real question is, are you ready to carry the gift you were born with? Because the 25 reasons you're about to hear are not surface compliments. They are reflections of something deeper, something ancient in the Sagittarian spirit. You were never designed to live cautiously. You were never meant to shrink your vision to make others comfortable. And you were never created to follow paths that suffocate your fire. But being a blessing in this world means more than enjoying adventure. It means becoming a force of truth, a force of expansion, a force that awakens others sometimes without even trying. And that is not always easy. Stay with me until the end of this video, because the final reason might reveal why 2026 is not just another year for you, it may be the year that defines who you truly are becoming. If you've ever felt different, if you've ever felt too intense, if you've ever walked away from something good because your soul needed something greater, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Let's begin. Reason 1. Sagittarius is blessed with an inner fire that refuses to live small in 2026. This is not just energy. This is not just enthusiasm. This is not just optimism. What makes Sagittarius truly blessed in 2026 is the uncontainable inner fire that refuses to accept a life of limitation. I have studied Sagittarius for decades, and there is one pattern that never changes even when they try to settle. Something inside them begins to revolt. They can sit in a comfortable job. They can stay in a stable relationship. They can follow a socially approved path. But if that path does not expand them, if it does not stretch their vision, if it does not ignite their spirit, the fire begins to whisper. And in 2026, that whisper becomes louder. Most people think Sagittarius just gets bored easily, but boredom is not the truth. Stagnation is the enemy. Sagittarius is blessed because they are incapable of shrinking themselves for long. Even when they try to fit in, their spirit eventually pushes them towards something greater. That inner fire is not random. It is directional. It forces growth. It demands experience. It refuses comfort that comes at the cost of meaning. And yes, that fire can create chaos if misunderstood. It can cause sudden decisions. It can disrupt what once felt secure. It can make others uncomfortable. But here is the deeper truth. Without that fire, Sagittarius would never evolve. In 2026, this inner flame becomes catalytic. Many Sagittarius individuals will feel an unusual dissatisfaction with almost good enough. They will sense that something bigger is calling them, not because they are ungrateful, but because their soul was never designed for smallness. That is the blessing. Not ease, not perfection, expansion, life lesson. If you are a Sagittarius, your restlessness is not a flaw, it is guidance. But fire without awareness burns blindly. Fire with direction becomes transformation. The blessing of 2026 is not that everything will go your way. It is that you will no longer tolerate what keeps you small, and that is power. Comment if you have ever felt that inner push towards something bigger, even when everything around you looked fine. Because what we explore next goes even deeper than fire. Reason 2. Sagittarius is blessed with radical honesty that protects their destiny in 2026. Sagittarius does not lie well. Even when they try to soften the truth, something in their tone gives it away. There is a rawness in them that resists manipulation, and in 2026 this becomes one of their greatest blessings. While others learn how to adapt by hiding parts of themselves, Sagittarius survives by exposing what is real. This honesty is not always comfortable. It can cost them friendships. It can create tension. It can even make them seem blunt. But here's the hidden strength. They do not build their lives on illusions. Sagittarius would rather lose something built on dishonesty than keep something that slowly poisons their integrity. That is rare. In 2026, situations will arise where truth must be spoken, conversations that have been delayed, feelings that have been suppressed, boundaries that were once flexible, and Sagittarius will feel the pressure. The blessing is not that truth is easy. The blessing is that Sagittarius cannot live disconnected from it. Radical honesty protects their future. It prevents them from investing years into false foundations. It forces clarity. It demands alignment. But truth without wisdom can wound. So, the lesson in 2026 is this. Life lesson. Speak truth, but let maturity guide your tone. Honesty is power when it builds clarity, not when it becomes a weapon. Sagittarius is blessed not because they are always right, but because they are unwilling to betray their own inner voice. Comment if you have ever lost something because you chose truth over comfort. Because the next blessing explains why Sagittarius refuses to stay where growth has stopped. Reason 3. Sagittarius is blessed with the courage to leave what no longer expands them. Most people stay too long in relationships that feel heavy, too long in careers that feel empty, too long in environments that quietly suffocate them. Sagittarius does not, and that is a blessing, especially in 2026. When growth disappears, Sagittarius begins to feel it physically. The room feels smaller, the conversations feel repetitive, the future feels limited. They try to tolerate it, but eventually something inside says, this is not it. Leaving is not recklessness. Leaving is alignment. Sagittarius understands something most people fear. Staying in the wrong place slowly erodes your spirit. Yes, they can be accused of running. Yes, they can appear impulsive, but more often than not, they are responding to a deeper instinct, the instinct that refuses to waste years on what no longer nourishes their evolution. In 2026, many Sagittarius individuals will outgrow something significant. It may shock others, it may feel sudden, but to them it has been building for months, sometimes years. The blessing is not that they leave easily. The blessing is that they refuse to betray their own expansion. Life lesson. Outgrowing something does not mean you failed. It means you evolved. Sagittarius is blessed because they understand that growth sometimes requires departure. Comment if you've ever walked away from something that looked perfect on the outside but felt wrong on the inside. Because what fuels that courage is even deeper. Reason 4. Sagittarius is blessed with vision that sees beyond the present moment. There is something almost prophetic about Sagittarius. They don't just live in the present, they feel the future forming. When they enter a situation, they are already sensing where it could lead. When they meet someone new, they intuitively scan the long-term potential. When they choose a path, they are not just thinking about tomorrow, they are thinking about direction. In 2026, this foresight becomes sharper. While others focus only on immediate comfort, Sagittarius will feel drawn toward bigger arcs of destiny. They may seem restless, they may seem distracted, but internally they are mapping possibility. This is a blessing, because vision prevents small decisions from becoming permanent mistakes. Sagittarius is rarely surprised by long-term outcomes, not because they control everything, but because they pay attention to patterns early. However, vision without grounding can turn into illusion. Seeing far ahead is powerful, but if Sagittarius ignores the practical steps needed to reach that vision, frustration can follow. So, 2026 teaches refinement. Life lesson: dream boldly, but act deliberately. Vision becomes destiny only when supported by discipline. Sagittarius is blessed because they can see beyond what is visible. They sense where life is expanding next. Comment if you've ever felt like you knew something was going to happen long before it did. And now, we move into something even more personal: how this fire transforms love itself. Reason 5. Sagittarius is blessed with a spirit that cannot be controlled. There is something about Sagittarius that resists confinement. Not rebellion for the sake of drama, not defiance for attention, but an instinctive refusal to be owned, shaped, or restricted by someone else's fear. In 2026, this becomes even more visible. Sagittarius can sense subtle control even when it's disguised as love, protection, or advice. The moment expectations start replacing authenticity, their spirit tightens, and that tightening is a signal. The blessing here is sovereignty. Sagittarius understands at a deep level that once freedom is surrendered, vitality fades. They are blessed because they instinctively protect their autonomy before it's too late. But this trait can create misunderstanding. Some people interpret independence as emotional distance. Others see it as selfishness. What they fail to see is that Sagittarius must breathe freely in order to love deeply. Without freedom, they cannot give their best self. Life lesson: if you are Sagittarius, protecting your independence is not selfish. But make sure you are protecting growth, not avoiding vulnerability. True freedom includes emotional maturity. Comment if you have ever felt misunderstood simply because you refuse to be controlled. Because this next blessing explains why Sagittarius can be both intense and unexpectedly light at the same time. Reason 6. Sagittarius is blessed with emotional resilience that turns pain into fuel. Here is something few people talk about. Sagittarius feels deeply, but they rarely stay broken. In 2026, emotional resilience becomes one of their greatest strengths. When disappointment happens, and it will, Sagittarius processes it differently. They may feel it intensely at first. They may retreat briefly, but something inside refuses to collapse. Instead of drowning in pain, they convert it. Heartbreak becomes motivation. Failure becomes redirection. Loss becomes clarity. This is not denial. It is transmutation. Sagittarius is blessed because their emotional system is wired for forward motion. They cannot sit in victimhood for long, not because they are insensitive, but because their spirit demands evolution. However, resilience can sometimes mask unprocessed emotion. If Sagittarius keeps moving without reflecting, lessons may repeat. Life lesson: strength is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to grow because of it. In 2026, your resilience is your advantage, but only if you allow yourself to feel before you rebuild. Comment if you've ever surprised yourself by how quickly you recovered from something that should have broken you. Because now we enter one of the most magnetic aspects of Sagittarius. Reason 7. Sagittarius is blessed with a passion that makes love unforgettable. Sagittarius does not love halfway. When they commit emotionally, they bring intensity, playfulness, depth, and spontaneity all at once. In 2026, this passionate nature becomes amplified. Their presence in love feels electric. They create experiences, not routines. They don't just express affection, they create memories. That's why people rarely forget a Sagittarius relationship. Their passion is not superficial. It is immersive. They make their partner feel seen, desired, alive. But here is the deeper truth. Passion without awareness can overwhelm. Sagittarius must learn in 2026 that intensity must be paired with consistency. Fire creates warmth, but it must be sustained, not explosive. Life lesson. Love is not just about intensity, it is about endurance. Sagittarius is blessed because they bring life into relationships, but their power multiplies when they anchor passion with emotional steadiness. Comment if someone has ever told you that loving you felt different from anything they experienced before, because passion alone is not what makes Sagittarius rare, it's what drives their mind. Reason 8. Sagittarius is blessed with intellectual hunger that refuses to stay average. Sagittarius is not satisfied with surface knowledge. They question, they explore, they challenge narratives. In 2026, this intellectual hunger becomes sharper. While others accept information passively, Sagittarius seeks expansion. They want to understand how systems work, how people think, how life unfolds beyond the obvious. This is a blessing because it keeps them evolving. They grow through ideas, through travel, through experience, through exposure to different perspectives. But intellectual superiority can become isolation if not balanced with humility. In 2026, Sagittarius is called not only to learn, but to integrate. Life lesson. Growth is not about knowing more than others. It is about becoming wiser through experience. Sagittarius is blessed because their mind refuses stagnation. They are lifelong students of life itself. Comment if you've ever felt bored by small talk and energized by deep conversation. And now we move into something even more powerful, how Sagittarius influences the lives of others without even trying. Reason 9. Sagittarius is blessed with the ability to inspire others without trying. There is something contagious about Sagittarius, not because they force attention, not because they demand admiration, but because they live unapologetically. In 2026, this becomes more visible than ever. When Sagittarius takes a risk, others begin questioning their own fears. When they leave a stagnant situation, someone else silently finds courage. When they chase a dream that seems unrealistic, people around them feel a subtle awakening. This is influence without control. Sagittarius does not need to preach. Their actions speak loudly enough. The blessing here is impact. They may not always realize it, but their refusal to live small gives others permission to expand. However, influence comes with responsibility. If Sagittarius moves recklessly, others may follow recklessly. If they evolve consciously, others grow consciously. Life lesson. Leadership is not about control, it is about example. In 2026, your courage does not affect only you, it activates others. Comment if someone has ever told you that you inspired them just by being yourself, because inspiration comes from somewhere deeper and that depth is the next blessing. Reason 10. Sagittarius is blessed with brutal self-awareness when they choose to face it. People assume Sagittarius is carefree, but when they slow down, when they actually look inward, they see everything. Their flaws, their contradictions, their escape patterns. In 2026, self-awareness becomes a turning point. Sagittarius has the rare ability to laugh at themselves while also recognizing their blind spots. That combination is powerful. It prevents ego from hardening. The blessing is this: they can reinvent themselves because they are not afraid to admit when something no longer works. But self-awareness requires stillness. And stillness is not always comfortable for Sagittarius. If they avoid reflection, growth stalls. If they face themselves honestly, transformation accelerates. Life lesson. Freedom without self-knowledge becomes repetition. Freedom with self-awareness becomes evolution. 2026 is not just about movement, it is about conscious movement. Comment if you've ever had a moment where you realized you were the one standing in your own way. Because the next blessing explains why Sagittarius can survive situations that overwhelm others. Reason 11. Sagittarius is blessed with an optimism that refuses to die. Even after disappointment, even after betrayal, even after failure, Sagittarius somehow believes again. In 2026, this optimism becomes protective armor. Not naive hope, not blind positivity, but a stubborn belief that tomorrow holds possibility. This is rare. Many people grow cynical. Sagittarius regenerates belief. That belief is what allows them to try again in love, in career, in dreams. But optimism must be grounded in wisdom. If Sagittarius ignores red flags under the excuse of hope, patterns repeat. If they combine optimism with discernment, miracles unfold. Life lesson. Hope is powerful, but clarity makes it sustainable. Sagittarius is blessed because their spirit naturally leans toward possibility. And in 2026, that belief opens doors that doubt would have kept closed. Comment if no matter how many times life knocked you down, you still found a reason to try again. Because belief alone does not define Sagittarius. Purpose does. Reason 12. Sagittarius is blessed with a sense of purpose that refuses to be ignored. There is something mission-driven about Sagittarius. They may not always know the exact destination, but they feel when their life lacks meaning. In 2026, that sense of purpose intensifies. Ordinary routines begin to feel suffocating if they are disconnected from growth. Conversations that once entertained now feel shallow. Goals that once seemed impressive now feel incomplete. This is not dissatisfaction. It is awakening. Sagittarius is blessed because their soul rejects mediocrity. They are wired to seek expansion, not only physically, but mentally and spiritually. However, purpose requires discipline. Without structure, purpose remains a feeling. With structure, it becomes legacy. Life lesson. Feeling called is not enough. Acting consistently is what transforms calling into impact. In 2026, Sagittarius is not being asked to dream bigger. They are being asked to become bigger. Comment if you've recently felt like your life is preparing for something more significant than you can explain. And what comes next is where this blessing becomes personal, especially in relationships and power dynamics. Reason 13. Sagittarius is blessed with the power to detach when necessary. One of the most misunderstood traits of Sagittarius is their ability to detach. People often mistake it for coldness or indifference, but in truth it is strength. In 2026, detachment becomes protection. When something becomes toxic, when respect disappears, when growth stops, Sagittarius can step back emotionally faster than most, not because they didn't care, but because they refuse to let attachment destroy their future. This is a blessing. They are not easily imprisoned by nostalgia. They do not romanticize pain for long. They understand that sometimes love must be released to protect destiny. But detachment must not become avoidance. If Sagittarius disconnects before communicating, misunderstandings grow. If they detach after clarity, they preserve peace. Life lesson. Letting go is not weakness. It is wisdom when done consciously. In 2026, the ability to detach from what drains you becomes a turning point. Comment if you've ever shocked someone by how quickly you moved on once your respect was broken. Because the next blessing explains why respect matters so much to Sagittarius. Reason 14. Sagittarius is blessed with a deep intolerance for dishonesty. Sagittarius can forgive many things, but deception, repeated lies, broken promises, that hits differently. In 2026, integrity becomes non-negotiable. Sagittarius may appear playful and easygoing, but beneath that is a strict internal code. They do not tolerate manipulation well. The moment they sense inconsistency between words and actions, something shifts. Trust once broken rarely returns the same. This is a blessing because it protects them from long-term betrayal. However, it also means they must learn discernment, not suspicion. Not everyone who makes a mistake is malicious, but consistent dishonesty is disqualifying. Life lesson. Protect your standards, but don't let past wounds make you paranoid. In 2026, Sagittarius refines who gets access to their energy. Comment if loyalty means more to you than comfort ever could. Because loyalty is not only about others, it is also about loyalty to oneself. Reason 15. Sagittarius is blessed with unshakable loyalty once they commit. Here is the paradox. Sagittarius may take time to commit. They may test compatibility. They may resist labels at first. But once they choose fully. In 2026, this loyalty becomes even more valuable. When Sagittarius believes in someone, they defend them. They invest in them. They support them even when no one else does. Their loyalty is not passive, it is active. They will encourage growth. They will challenge mediocrity. They will push their loved ones toward potential. But loyalty must never override self-respect. If Sagittarius stays loyal to someone who repeatedly dishonors them, that blessing becomes self-sacrifice. Life lesson: be loyal, but never at the cost of your own dignity. In 2026, loyalty becomes selective, and that selectiveness protects your future. Comment if once you give your heart, you give it completely. And now we move into something even more powerful, how Sagittarius handles power itself. Reason 16. Sagittarius is blessed with natural leadership, rooted in vision. Sagittarius does not always seek authority, but they often become leaders. Why? Because they see further. In 2026, their long-range thinking positions them ahead of trends, ahead of emotional patterns, ahead of opportunities others overlook. They may not micromanage, they may not control every detail, but they set direction. This is leadership through expansion. People gravitate toward them because Sagittarius makes the future feel possible. However, leadership requires consistency. If Sagittarius chases too many ideas without grounding them, followers lose clarity. If they commit to structure, they build influence that lasts. Life lesson: vision attracts attention. Discipline sustains it. In 2026, Sagittarius is not just influencing small circles, they are shaping environments. Comment if you've ever been told you see things before others do, because the next set of blessings moves from influence to transformation, and that is where 2026 becomes truly defining. Reason 17. Sagittarius is blessed with the ability to rebuild from nothing. There is something extraordinary about Sagittarius when life collapses. They do not stay down for long. In 2026, this becomes one of their most defining strengths. When something ends a relationship, a career path, a dream, Sagittarius does not remain trapped in the ruins. They may feel the loss, they may grieve privately, but internally something activates. A rebuilding instinct. They do not need perfect conditions to start again. They do not require universal approval. When necessary, they will walk away and construct an entirely new chapter from scratch. That is not luck. That is resilience fused with vision. However, rebuilding too quickly without reflection can repeat patterns. Sagittarius must ensure they are building smarter, not just faster. Life lesson: losing everything is terrifying, but the ability to rebuild is a rare blessing. In 2026, your power lies not in what you keep, but in what you can recreate. Comment if you've ever started over and surprised yourself with how strong you actually were, because rebuilding is fueled by something deeper than strength. It is fueled by self-belief. Reason 18. Sagittarius is blessed with unbreakable self-belief, even when others doubt them, even when plans fail, even when support disappears. Sagittarius often still believes. In 2026, that belief becomes magnetic. Self-belief is not arrogance. It is internal conviction. It is the quiet voice that says, "I will figure this out." Many people collapse under external criticism. Sagittarius absorbs it but does not surrender to it. That is why they often attempt things others consider unrealistic. They are not naive. They are courageous enough to trust themselves. But self-belief must remain flexible. If Sagittarius refuses feedback entirely, growth slows. If they combine belief with humility, their expansion becomes unstoppable. Life lesson: believe in yourself, but stay open to refinement. Confidence grows strongest when paired with adaptability. In 2026, your belief in yourself becomes the foundation of your next breakthrough. Comment if even in your lowest moments you never fully doubted your ability to rise again, because belief fuels something even more powerful. Transformation. Reason 19. Sagittarius is blessed with the courage to transform completely. Some people adjust slightly. Sagittarius transforms radically. In 2026, identity shifts become central. You may change goals, you may change social circles, you may change priorities, and others might say, "You've changed." Yes, that is the point. Sagittarius is blessed because they are not afraid to outgrow old versions of themselves. They do not cling to outdated identities just to maintain comfort. Transformation is not betrayal of the past. It is evolution. But transformation requires letting go of ego. If Sagittarius changes only to escape discomfort, growth becomes shallow. If they change because they are becoming more aligned, the shift becomes permanent. Life lesson. You are allowed to evolve beyond who you used to be. Growth is not instability, it is refinement. In 2026, transformation is not optional for Sagittarius, it is inevitable. Comment if you feel like you are not the same person you were a year ago, because evolution brings responsibility. And that leads to the next blessing. Reason 20. Sagittarius is blessed with the responsibility to expand more than themselves. This is where 2026 becomes serious. Sagittarius does not grow only for personal gain. Their expansion affects others. When they learn, they teach. When they rise, they pull others upward. When they explore, they widen perspectives around them. This is influence at a soul level. Sagittarius is blessed because their growth creates ripple effects. Their courage normalizes bravery. Their honesty encourages authenticity. Their expansion invites others to leave small lives behind. But responsibility can feel heavy. If Sagittarius ignores their influence, they may underestimate their impact. If they embrace it consciously, they become catalysts. Life lesson. Your growth is not just about you. When you expand consciously, you expand the world around you. In 2026, Sagittarius is not just evolving, they are awakening others. Comment if you've ever realized that your choices affected more people than you initially thought. And now, we enter the final stretch, the last 5 reasons that define why 2026 is not just another year, but a defining chapter for Sagittarius. Reason 21. Sagittarius is blessed with the ability to see opportunity where others see risk. In 2026, while many hesitate, Sagittarius moves, not recklessly, not blindly, but instinctively. Where others see uncertainty, Sagittarius sees possibility. Where others see danger, they sense expansion. This is not denial of reality, it is a different lens. They are wired to detect potential hidden inside discomfort. This is a blessing because it allows them to enter spaces others avoid and often emerge ahead. However, opportunity must be evaluated, not romanticized. If Sagittarius leaps without calculation, growth becomes chaos. But if they combine instinct with strategy, they unlock doors others never attempt to open. Life lesson. Risk is not the enemy. Unexamined risk is. Courage becomes power when guided by awareness. In 2026, your willingness to step forward before the crowd becomes your advantage. Comment if you've ever taken a leap others warned you against and it changed your life. Because courage alone is not what defines Sagittarius at this level, conviction does. Reason 22. 2. Sagittarius is blessed with conviction that cannot be easily broken. Once Sagittarius believes in something, truly believes, they do not surrender easily. In 2026, this inner conviction becomes a stabilizing force. They may bend, they may reassess, but they rarely collapse under pressure. Conviction is what allows them to stand alone when necessary. It is what keeps them walking when validation disappears. This blessing protects their identity, but conviction must not become stubbornness. If Sagittarius refuses to adapt when evidence demands growth, conviction turns rigid. If they refine their beliefs through experience, conviction becomes wisdom. Life lesson. Stand firm in your values, but allow life to refine your understanding. In 2026, your strength lies not just in believing, but in evolving your beliefs intelligently. Comment if you've ever held on to something everyone else abandoned and you were right to do so, because belief and conviction prepare Sagittarius for something even larger. Impact. Reason 23. Sagittarius is blessed with the power to disrupt stagnant systems. Sagittarius rarely blends quietly into environments that lack growth. In 2026, they become disruptors consciously or unconsciously. They question outdated structures. They challenge routines that feel limiting. They introduce ideas that feel uncomfortable but necessary. This is not rebellion for ego. It is expansion challenging stagnation. Some will admire it, some will resist it, but disruption is often the beginning of progress. However, disruption must be purposeful. If Sagittarius challenges without direction, they create noise. If they challenge with clarity, they create transformation. Life lesson. Change is uncomfortable, but comfort without growth becomes decay. In 2026, Sagittarius may find themselves shaking foundations that were overdue for movement. Comment if you've ever been called too much simply because you refuse to accept mediocrity. Because disruption is fueled by something deeply personal. Authenticity. Reason 24. Sagittarius is blessed with unfiltered authenticity. Sagittarius does not perform well when pretending. They can try, they can adapt temporarily, but eventually their real voice emerges. In 2026, authenticity becomes unavoidable. The more they attempt to fit expectations that do not align, the more restless they feel. Their body reacts, their energy shifts, their clarity fades. This is a blessing, because authenticity attracts alignment. When Sagittarius speaks honestly, acts sincerely, and chooses paths that reflect their truth, doors open naturally. But authenticity requires responsibility. Being real does not mean being careless. Truth must still be expressed with maturity. Life lesson. Be authentic, but be evolved. Realness without awareness creates conflict. Realness with wisdom creates influence. In 2026, your authenticity becomes your filter. What aligns stays. What doesn't dissolves. Comment if you've ever felt physically uncomfortable pretending to be someone you're not. And now, we arrive at the final reason, the one that ties all 25 together. Reason 25. Sagittarius is blessed because their fire is meant to awaken the world in 2026. This is the truth beneath every other reason. Sagittarius is not blessed for comfort. They are blessed for ignition. Every trait we've explored: the fire, the honesty, the courage, the resilience, the vision, the conviction. They are not random personality traits. They are catalytic traits. In 2026, Sagittarius energy does not shrink. It expands. And when Sagittarius expands consciously, environments shift. Conversations deepen. People around them begin questioning their own limitations. Sagittarius is blessed because their existence disrupts complacency. But awakening others requires self-mastery. If Sagittarius lives unconsciously, they scatter energy. If they live intentionally, they ignite transformation. Life lesson. You are not given fire to stay warm. You are given fire to illuminate. 2026 is not simply another chapter. It is activation. Comment if you feel like this year is pushing you toward a version of yourself that feels bigger than before. And now, it's time to bring all of this together. Closing script. So now you understand. Being a Sagittarius is not just about adventure. It's not just about passion. It's not just about freedom. Those are only the surface. The real blessing is the fire that refuses to let you live unconsciously. In 2026, that fire intensifies. You may feel restless. You may feel impatient. You may feel like something inside you is demanding more. That is not chaos. That is awakening. All 25 reasons we explored point to one truth. Sagittarius is blessed because they are built for expansion. You are not designed for small lives. You are not wired for emotional cages. You are not meant to follow paths that shrink your spirit. But here is the deeper truth. Expansion requires courage. Freedom requires discipline. Passion requires maturity. Influence requires responsibility. A blessing without awareness becomes self-sabotage. A blessing with awareness becomes destiny. 2026 is not asking you to chase excitement. It is asking you to refine your fire, to speak truth without cruelty, to love without losing yourself, to evolve without running, to lead without ego. This is the year where your natural traits either elevate you or expose what still needs growth. And that is not punishment. That is power. Because Sagittarius was never meant to be ordinary, you were meant to question, to explore, to challenge limits, to awaken possibility not just for yourself, but for others. If you've watched this far, you already feel it. Something is shifting, something is expanding, and something inside you refuses to go backward. That is not coincidence, that is alignment. So, here's the real question. Will you treat your fire as entertainment or as purpose? Comment below if this message resonated with you. I want to know which of the 25 reasons felt most personal, and if you are ready to step fully into who you are becoming in 2026, make sure you subscribe. Because this channel is not about horoscopes for comfort. It's about awakening the truth inside Sagittarius. And this year, that truth is only getting stronger.